Okay. Om Sadashivasamarampham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam Akhandam Sachidanandam Avang-manasagocharam Atmanam Akhiladharam Ashraye Bhishta-siddhaye Arthatopi Advayanandan Atita-dvaita bhanataha Guru-naradhya Vedanta Saram Vakshe Yathamatihi. Okay. A question is good. It says, the manifestation is unreal. Karma, karma phala, etc. is mithya. But does it not obstruct my path to moksha? Therefore, how it can be unreal? Isn't that in a nutshell?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. My karma phala,
Other people's also.
Everything.
Exactly.
So the whole thing,
Yeah.
then it is a block. Then
Yeah.
how will I have to pass that block. And if
Yeah.
the block is unreal, then it will be so easy, but it's not that.
Okay, now remember one thing. What we studied in Adhyasa Bhashya. Iyam adhyasam puruskritya sarve pramana prameya vyavahara laukika vedikascha vidhi pratisheda moksha paranicha. Keeping this adhyasa in view alone is all pramana prameya vyavahara, all knowledge gaining transactions. Whether it is based on karma vidhi pratisheda or it is based for moksha. Okay. So, if I am saying I am a seeker, I want to gain moksha. Who is that I? The ignorant one. The one who has got adhyasa. What is adhyasa? Atasmin tad buddhi. Remember, we've seen all that. Taking the body, mind, etc. is myself. Now, once I have taken the body, mind, etc. as myself, I have to deal with other body minds. I have to deal with the world. Okay. You go out in the world and say, COVID-19 is mithya, they'll catch you, are you an anti-vaxxer? Are you a follower of that Novak, that tennis player who has got into problems in Australia? So, there are two aspects to it now. Okay. Yes, the Upanishad is unequivocal in its declaration that the world is mithya. Okay. I would like all of you to go back and look at the 4 definitions of mithya. You remember the 4 definitions of mithya? I put it up in the group. याद है ना सबको? नहीं तो थोड़ा और देख लो ग्रुप में रहेगा किधर. Unless you have kept on deleting everything and not saving up what is important also. Yeah. So, look at those 4 definitions. Anything that is changing, anything that is not as real as it appears, subjective reality, all that. So, there are certain unreal things which are not transactionally valid. Like the snake that you see on the rope. You can't get venom out of it to make medicines or anti-venom medications. You can't get venom out of it. But a functional snake, you can get venom out of it. That's functionally valid. So certain things will not be functionally valid, certain things will be functionally valid. To understand that what is not functionally valid as mithya is very easy. Sunita, why are you shaking so much? Where are you?
Now I won't. I'm settled.
Okay. Yeah, because I thought you are getting distracted from the answer. Okay, yeah.
No,
Okay.
no.
Okay. So, because it was as though you are riding a horse. Appearance. Okay. Okay. Now, so these are functionally valid, functionally invalid. Now, in our ignorance, because the fact I am body and mind is so strong in my mind, I take the world as real. That means what? My finitude is real. And if my finitude is real, I will never gain moksha, nor will the desire for moksha come up in my mind. My search for fulfillment, etc., will not be there only. Yeah, it will not be there. Because finitude is my nature. No one complains about what is your nature. That you are hungry is not a matter for complaint. But if you don't feel hungry for the whole day, then that becomes a matter for complaint. What is wrong with my digestion? Maybe I should go to a doctor. But for all of us who want to lose weight, not feeling hungry is a good thing. No? If you want to lose weight and you don't feel hungry, it's ideal. Yeah? Come on, don't eat. Take one meal a day and you're fine. But that is not what happens. That's not what happens. You know? Even those who want to lose weight, if they don't feel hungry for a few days like that, they will crib about it and go to a doctor. And the right thing to do also. So now look at this. There are certain things which are alien to you, certain things which are natural to you. About the natural, there is no complaint. Similarly, your search for moksha is a very, very natural phenomenon. Recognized or unrecognized is only question. Now, you are going to start off where you are. You are in ignorance, you are in Dvaita. If you are in ignorance or in Dvaita, your mind should be able to accept the idea of something bigger, much, much, much bigger. So the idea of Ishvara is brought in. Okay? Because you need to identify yourself with something bigger. Your mind expansion has to take place. Okay? So Ishvara is brought into the picture. You need to have a healthy self-esteem. So certain yoga for competency, etc. is brought in. You need to have a sense of surrender at the same time. Otherwise, the ego will go haywire. So Ishvara is there also at the same time. You remember all the workshops we did in SIS College? Many of you were there for it. All these points we covered there actually. So when all this is what? So there are religious ways of doing it. There are so-called secular ways of doing it. They are not really secular. They look like that. So Karma Yoga, etc. comes in. All this is meant for growth. So we use the duality that is there, that we have taken as real, for growth. For our emotional maturity. We take all them. Because we already taken it as real. So use it to grow. Then when you come to the teaching, it is pointed out that they are not real. They are functionally valid but not real. The COVID-19 virus, or as I like to call it, the Wuhan virus, is functionally valid but not real. It's mithya. The very fact it changes so much proves it is mithya. Remember definitions of mithya. The very fact it is time bound shows it is mithya. The very fact it can be killed with soap and water shows it is mithya. It's like one of the kids asked me, before the vaccines came up, there is no medicine for something that can be killed with soap and water. What is this? How do you answer the child? He's right. But you can't drink soap and water or put it into your nose. Na? So, the idea is mithya. But it has got a functional validity. Because it's got a functional validity, we'll use masks when we go out, sanitize our hands, etc., wash our hands regularly. All that we will do. Because one is at the functioning level, the other is at the cognitive level. Whereas when you are saying this is it, your mind is thinking of it categorically. It has to be like this or it has to be like this. You are getting stuck with black and white thinking. You know, classical thinking, aisa rehne ka, nahi to aisa rehne ka. Classify it, categorize it. You can't think of something being unreal at the same time functionally valid. But the whole world is like that. It's unreal but functionally valid. The virus, any virus is a classical example of it. Because it keeps mutating so often. Why do you think we have not found a cure for the common cold? We have got some 300 varieties of it now, 300 different mutations of that virus. Where are you going to get a cure? Even a vaccine is difficult. 300 mutations, what are you going to do with it? But by the time it mutates so much, it becomes so mild that you don't have to worry about it. So, these are all classical things, that anything that changes, anything that is time bound, anything that is different from what it appears, all that is mithya. Anything that exists depending upon something else is mithya. Virus is classical mithya. It can't survive by itself. It needs a host. Correct or not? That's why it's mutating to become milder. Why? Because if the virus kills the host, the virus also will not survive. So it has to become milder. I said this right at the beginning of the epidemic. 2 years ago, I said this right in the beginning, that it will mutate to become milder. It has to. That is Ishvara's order. It has to survive, na? Viruses that don't mutate and become milder will not become an epidemic. HIV is not an epidemic because it's not mutated much. It has something, but smallpox didn't mutate, so a vaccine, we could get rid of it from the face of the earth. Yeah, remember this. These are all part of Ishvara's order at work. It is so beautiful to see Ishvara's order working at the functional level. We may call...
One validation, can I ask?
Hold on, let me finish this answer.
Okay.
Yeah. So, this is how the whole thing is working. So, there is Ishvara's order. But Ishvara's order is also within the functioning world. Without the world, is there an order? You don't see it. The order is meant for the world. No? World meaning the whole universe. 14 dimensions that we saw in Vedanta Sara. So the whole thing has to be recognized as mithya, even though it's functionally valid. That's why I put up those 4 definitions. The more you think about those 4 definitions, the more it will strike in your mind. But all our work, especially for a doctor in today's world, you are struggling and dealing with the functioning world. It becomes so real. It becomes so real. Yeah. Because that's what you're dealing with now, life and death situations. It's a life and death situation. No? Often it is like that. How do you tell if you're a sensitive human being and a doctor both? They are not exclusive, okay? Yeah. How do you tell a patient that the tumor is cancerous? Especially if it is a mother of young kids. How do you tell her? But because it is emotionally difficult, do you mean to say the tumor is not mithya? Hey, it's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It'll melt away on chemo. Melt away. You don't even have to bother about surgery. Which proves his mithyatvam, na? Because time bound, it changes. So your mind should be able to hold these two ideas very, very well. Functional validity and mithyatvam together. So, the functional validity of a thing at the same time it being mithya. Aren't we dealing with mithya's mithya right now here? This class. Are we really seeing each other? We're only seeing images. It's a virtual reality. And even in virtual reality, some people are feeling shy to put on their videos. Why? I am not dressed appropriately. Or my background is not good. Or whatever reason they have. Whatever inhibitions they have. Yeah. Or poor connection. Okay. But it is all mithya. But it's functionally valid, na? In this time, we are able to interact and have a class. May not be the ideal condition, but we are having a class. Valid, functional validity. But can anyone say this is real? It's purely virtual, no? Where is the reality there? But many have taken this as the reality and say, Swamiji, all our classes can be on Zoom all the time, no? You don't have to travel so much. At one level it comes from their kindness. On another level it comes from the mistaken notion that this is reality. Believe me, as a teacher I know the limitation of taking a class on Zoom. So, to hold these two ideas, functional validity and mithyatvam together. The entire that's what we are trying to do in this thing, na? In this section. Go back, apavada, to see that everything depends on something else, something else, something else, something else. It has come like that, go back like that. Is it making sense to you, Sunita?
Yes.
Yeah, hold these two ideas in your mind. But because your mind is used to scientific thinking. Scientific thinking is categorical. You have to categorize things, no? Biology में कितना categories हैं? Vertebrates, invertebrates, oh my God, the whole thing is all categories only. Correct? You started like that. In school almost my brains are trained for categorical thinking. My God. Not a wonder we get stuck in black and white thinking. That becomes a distortion. From then onwards. Nobody is teaching about the holistic oneness about the whole thing. Modern approach is not about holistic oneness. Sometimes I like to joke, scientific thinking is like a child examining a toy. You see a child examining a toy, he'll take it apart to see what is it. Scientists also take it apart. It's not holistic. And then in science you made so many divisions. Medicine, so many specialities. You are an internalist, for example, medicine. Or you are a surgeon. Two broad categories you have. Internalists and surgeons. Diagnostics like R&D and all that is different. Radiologists, etc. different. And then pathologists, etc. Okay. But even if you take these two categories, surgery and internal medicine, how many categories you have within them? Thoracic surgeon is different. ENT is different. Orthopedics is different. What is the poor surgeon left with? Stomach. Gynecologist is different. Similarly, you are an internalist. Then, again, ENT specialist, diabetologist, cardiologist, nephrologist. Can you see what categorization is doing? Your minds are geared to that categorization. Who is looking at the body as one whole? That is left to the poor GP. Correct? The least qualified of them, the poor GP, has to look at the whole thing that 10 different doctors have inputted and try to make sense of the whole thing. Right or wrong? This is what is happening in today's, no?
Yes.
All categorical thinking. So our minds are stuck in that. This is valid, this is not valid. Hey, both are there together. Functionally valid, unreal. If your mind can hold their paradoxes, you will understand Vedanta better. That means what? A mind that can quickly understand jokes and be witty will understand Vedanta better. Because all jokes are about paradoxes. Isn't it true? Every joke is a paradox. Like Jane was asking her husband Tom, do you remember the worst mistake you have made? And Tom says, I do. Two people have got the joke here very easily. Now others are also getting it. Some have still not got it. That's okay. There's a certain background. In Christianity, when you get married, you say, I do, no? When the priest asks you, do you take so and so as your wife? And you say, I do. So, so the mind that can appreciate this is, okay, that mind will get Vedanta. If you are a mind that is asking, how is that a joke? Please explain it to me. Forget it. So you train your mind to look at things specifically and to look at it holistically. That's how you train your mind. Because both are important. To look at it in depth specifically by separating it out things, and to put it all together and look at it holistically also. Exactly like you're cooking. I'm giving a very simple homely example. You have to look at it in terms of individual spices, especially Indian cooking. You'll have half a dozen spices for anything and everything. And you have to look at it holistically because it has to come as one whole. You'll do it. It's not that you don't do it. You'll measure out the spices. And then to make it a homogeneous whole, you may add a thing or two, or a pinch or two of something or the other, apart from the measurements. That's where your refinement of understanding comes in. Yeah. That's where we go from good to great. So it is this type of thinking. The whole world is functionally valid but unreal. The more you see that, the easier it will be for you to understand Vedanta. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, Sashi had a question. Unmute yourself, Sashi. You're muted. Yeah.
Yeah, just I wanted to share. So that means Shashi is Brahman, but Brahman is not Shashi. the world is Brahman. The Brahman
Okay.
is not the world.
You can put it like that
We can.
if you want to. Not strictly this thing, but okay. Yeah.
Then Ishvara and Brahman,
Is one and the same.
no, Ishvara is Brahman, but Brahman is not Ishvara.
No, Brahman is also Ishvara only. That's the
Brahman
difference.
is also- Yeah, here I was getting stuck.
Again, categorical thinking coming in. ये ईश्वरा क्या है, ब्रह्मन क्या है, जीवा क्या है, डिफरेंट करो.
So we have to learn with too much duality. वो अच्छा भी है, खराब भी है.
Correct. That you already learned. You are stuck in duality anyway. So that problem doesn't exist. You only have to study about non-duality. For that you necessarily have to take the world as mithya. Now look at it. Look at what. Okay. I remember what I used to do with this book. Because
Yeah.
last time some people I could see were confused. I was not very sure, but when I checked up, I knew they were confused. Okay. What do I take this book and say? This book was paper once upon a time. Then from paper I go to, I'm going back into what we had done last time. So please
Yeah.
listen, okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this was paper. Paper was nothing but wood pulp. Wood pulp is nothing but hydrocarbons. Correct? I go backwards. Now, look at what he has done last time. Okay. Look at what he has done last time. The world that you see is from Panchikrita Mahabhutas.
Yeah.
So is resolved into Panchikrita Mahabhutas, Apanchikrita Mahabhutas, Sukshma Sharirani, etc. Then into the Avyakta Maya Shakti, into the consciousness. Same thing. What I did with this, he is doing this with the whole world, a different paradigm.
Yeah.
When I deal with this, I am using a scientific paradigm because many of you are familiar with that. When he is talking about, he is using a traditional paradigm. That's all. The thing is the same. What he said last time is the same thing. Going back to the final cause. No? Yeah. The four types of bodies, the sense organ, this, that, etc. goes into the Mahabhutas, Pancha Mahabhutas. I'm deliberately not using the word element because it will create confusion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you're stuck in scientific thinking. Element is a scientific word. So you don't have a word for it. So how will you translate Pancha Mahabhutas? 5 great bhutas. Elements you can't use, then what will you use?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it goes like that. And he also said one thing. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, etc. All that. Which was the verse we saw last time? What is the last verse we saw?
We went up to 147.
5, 4.
Yeah, 145. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he says, because he was going into the meaning of Tattvamasi, right? Yeah. 147 also we saw. Says Taptaya Pindavat, he said. Okay. Taptaya Pindavat. He gave an example. How your categorical thinking is, their viveka is necessary, but not categorization. You have thrown a ball of iron into the fire and waited for some time. Now someone comes in, he sees only a ball of fire. That fireball is the Jiva or Ishvara. Either way you can take it. Individual or total standpoint. When you separate out Anatma, Atma, you will get the difference between iron and fire. Similarly, when you separate out there between Maya and consciousness, that fireball is Ishvara. Fire is consciousness. Cognitively. You can't, here at least you can separate it out. Take that fireball with a pair of tongs, put it outside for some time or soak it in water. The heat goes away. and you will see only iron ball. You won't see the fire at that time. Because it is within the world of duality, any example will be limited. Any example will be limited. Why? Any example has to be from known to you. If the example has to be known to you, it has to be within the field of duality. And through that, what we are trying to point out, how the non-dual is appearing as dual. Correct? And we are trying to go back to non-duality. So examples available are always within the dualistic world. The closest you can come is space, etc. But he didn't want you all to think space is real, therefore he has presented space also as a manifested entity, manifested from Ishvara. That idea fits in with modern science, though modern science started talking about it only recently. In Newtonian physics, space was taken as absolute. 100 years ago, space was taken as absolute. Yeah. That time the theory was steady state universe. The universe keeping on changing but always there. Big Bang theory came after that. So then we started talking about the creation of space also from the Big Bang. And manifestation of space from Ishvara in Vedanta. In fact, the scientist doesn't like to use the word creation. And he is right. It's manifestation only. Because creation, when you use the word creation, in your minds, in language has certain nuances. In English, when you say creation, English language is connected up with the Bible very strongly. Like how Sanskrit is connected up with Vedanta very strongly.
Vedanta, yeah.
So when you say creation, it implies that there is some being sitting down there and making all this and sending it down. Which is a bugbear for the scientist. He doesn't like to even think like that. If you are studying it in Sanskrit, not a problem. Because mithya hai na. So manifestation ही हो सकता है. Why? Because we will say karya karana ananyatvam. There is a non-difference between cause and effect. The cloth has become the kurta. The clay has become the pot. Cause-effect relationship. Ananyatvam. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is talked about differently. In Indian thinking, it's talked about differently. So even if you use the word srishti in Sanskrit, it is not exact equivalent of creation in English. It's not the exact equivalent. Yeah. It's all manifestation. Yeah. From the cloth, the kurta is manifest. From the paper, the book has manifested. There is an intelligent intervention, yes, because it's a finite world. Therefore, there is intelligence also. There is an efficient cause and a material cause. Then we come to Ishvara and say material and efficient cause is one and the same. That also becomes important. Because only then the understanding of Advaita will come in. Why? Karya karana ananyatvam. You are not different. You have manifested the entire thing from consciousness. So where are you? If you take yourself other than consciousness, then you are stuck. बहुत गड़बड़ हो जाता है. And if you take yourself as consciousness, you still have to deal with the functioning world. Not a problem. Functional but unreal. Non-functional but real. The basis for all the functioning world is me. By the way, the virus is conscious or not conscious?
Not conscious.
It's manifestation of consciousness. There is rudimentary consciousness there also. Why? Because it can respond to the environment. That much is there. Because a living organism is that which can respond to the environment. So that much it does. Whereas a stone doesn't do that. But stone, the consciousness is manifest as existence. Yeah. So, ठीक है यार, it has come from me only. But this form of mind has to be protected from that. Therefore, mask up. Yeah. Simple.
So Swamiji,
Yeah.
just a related question.
Yeah.
I mean, when we say Ishvara is Brahman, Brahman is Ishvara, that would be at the stage of when you actually do the Bhagatyaga Lakshana.
Yeah, all that will come. The next section is about that.
Yeah. But up until then, Ishvara, I mean, again, the way I have
Yeah.
understood it, Ishvara is introduced more as a part of the Adhyaropa to
Yeah,
accommodate.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, if in that case, Swamiji, from that standpoint, if we look at Ishvara as a part of the Adhyaropa aspect, and therefore Mithya, does that mean Ishvara is changing?
No. That is why we say Brahman with Maya is called Ishvara. The changing aspect is Maya, the non-changing aspect is Brahman. So Ishvara becomes the constant then. Yeah. But as far as because he is presented as Mayavi, Shaktiman, Mayavi, Shaktiman, etc. is presented. Now please don't think of the serial Shaktiman. Okay. Yeah.
But Ishvara is the composite entity, right? As in Brahman and
Not really. It's not a composite. See, that is what happens again in categorical thinking, and unfortunately, there are Vedanta teachers also who present it like that. Some of the notes that people here have been reading, like you have been reading those notes, Nita is Nita here from a Thursday class? Nita Bhogilal? No? Okay, she's not there here today. Yeah. So, all of you have been reading these notes where unfortunately, okay, those notes are not really Swami Paramarthananda's words, okay? They are written by some students, they are class notes. So, some of it is presented in a categorical fashion. Brahman plus Maya is equal to Ishvara. Ishvara minus Maya is Brahman. I can't help laughing when you look at it like that, okay? Because how are you ever going to separate Maya from Brahman? I don't know.
Brahman minus Ishvara is Maya.
Huh? Yeah, their minds are held in Maya. Maya tu prakritim viddhi, Mayinam tu Maheshwaram. There is no plus there. It's my apara Shakti. It is a power that is there, that's inherent in Brahman. Either that power is manifested. If the power is manifested, then you have creation. And then you will call the same Brahman Ishvara. Why? He has manifested the power. My own power I am manifesting. The power is not manifested. What is there is only Brahman. You call it Brahman. Now two words are used just to understand. Okay, Ishvara, we are talking about Maya and the creation as well. That's why you don't have to say Jagat and Ishvara. You don't have to say, when you say Ishvara, Jagat is included. Then normally in teaching you will say Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. Because these are 3 points of reference that you need in your mind. You, the individual Jiva, the world that you confront, and Ishvara, the common source for the two. So it is presented like that. Trikoti is presented. Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. But everything becomes only one Brahman. In the final understanding. The final understanding, what is there is only one Brahman. So, be careful of that categorical presentation, When you are reading these books, be careful of that. Because they are written by students. क्लास नोट से है सब.
And Swamiji, related to Ishvara, towards the end of the last class,
Yeah.
you had mentioned, I have just written it down verbatim, I'll just read it out.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that if Ishvara goes out of the picture, you can't have Sarvatma Bhava.
Yeah, if Ishvara goes out of the picture, you can't have Sarvatma Bhava.
Would you mind elaborating a little
Yes,
on that? Swamiji?
I will do that. Because, see, when you talk about only consciousness, like some modern teachers do in Neo Vedanta, modern teachers don't want to keep it, because they have a lot of Western students. Because they have a lot of Western students, or they have modern students, secular. They're very secular. Somehow, secular has become equated to not having anything to do with God. The original meaning of the word secular was separation of state and religion. It came from the signing of the Magna Carta onwards down. People are not aware of the historical perspective of a word, that's a problem. And the Indian constitution was never meant to be secular. That's why the constitution starts with India, that is known as, Bharat, that is known as India. It was never meant to be secular or socialistic. Indira Gandhi declared a state of emergency in 1976. Put the whole opposition behind the bars, or they went underground. Like Modi and all went underground. Vajpayee and all was behind the bars. Vajpayee, Advani and all were behind the bars. The senior leaders were behind the bars, others went underground to resist the emergency. Declared a state of emergency, put all the MPs behind the bars, so there was no opposition, and the Congress party passed a resolution, majority now, no? Naturally majority, there is no opposition. All of them are behind the bars. Yeah, all of them are behind the bars. As it is, they had a majority, plus this. So, because they had to get 2/3 majority. To change the constitution, you require 2/3 majority. So, they put behind the bars, got 2/3 majority, which is not true, because if you are taking the total number of seats, you are preventing people from attending the parliament and saying you have 2/3 majority, and introduce the word secular and socialist in the preamble. The preamble of the constitution, really speaking, is not meant to be touched. But they did that. It's an illegal thing. I know. I studied a lot of the Indian constitution right from my school days onwards. Civics was a very important topic for me. So it has been illegally brought in, the word secular. And over time, secular became anti-God. In India, anti-Hindu especially, right from Nehru's times. Even though he used to call himself Pandit, he said, I am a Hindu by the accident of birth. Culturally, I am more affiliated with Islam, and education-wise, more with England. I am an Englishman. He has clearly stated this. Read his works, Discovery of India, which I have. Okay. Yeah. Nothing said is not verified. Okay. All this is verified. Anyway, so because the audience is secular or westernized, okay, some teachers, modern teachers, we call them Neo Vedanta, drops the idea of Ishvara. Now, if you drop the idea of Ishvara and present you as consciousness, because then there is nothing, where is the totality? If Ishvara is gone, totality is gone. And then you are saying consciousness. What will be the idea of consciousness? Me. Because you are talking from me. This was a great trend started by J. Krishnamurti, for example. Jiddu Krishnamurti, I have heard him live. I was very young, but I heard him live. Okay. College student. And today's world, if you go on the net and look for people like Muji, etc., they will talk like this. It's a Caribbean teacher, very charismatic, nice guy. I like the guy, I met him. He comes to Rishikesh every year. Until the pandemic started, every year he would have a camp in Rishikesh, right next door to our ashram. In the next ashram. So all these people present it as only consciousness. The problem of that presentation is, where do you bring in the totality? It's only consciousness. You will say consciousness is everything, but you know, your concept of everything is what? All that you see. That's it, no? The whole universe concept is not there in your mind. Even when you say the world, what do you mean by the world? What do you understand, what you deal with? Emotionally, it will boil down to only that much. Emotionally speaking, your emotional connect with the world will be what you experience. That's why in Sanskrit we'll call it a lokaha. Lokaha anubhuyate iti. That which is experienced. That's all your loka is. That's why we'll talk about social world, political world, student world. Don't we use such expression in journalism, for example? So, your understanding of consciousness also becomes limited to you. So, that type of teaching is very good to understand at Tvampada Lakshana. Lakshana of I. What exactly do I mean? They are very good in that. I have to give it to them, okay? Both Jiddu, Krishnamurti and Mooji, all of them are very good at analyzing and coming to the fact of I consciousness. But this I consciousness is everything. Because they don't bring in Ishvara, that everything is limited. So the Sarvatma Bhava, that is what pure Vedanta is really about. I am consciousness is not enough to make it Vedanta. Sankhya also talks about it as I consciousness. No? But many Purushas, remember we saw that in the Apavada, in the Adhyaropa, individual Adhyaropa, we have seen that. Sankhya also talks about the individual as consciousness. But then there are many Purushas, therefore there are many consciousness, we will have to say. Many pockets of consciousness, that's exactly what Sankhya is saying. So even though they call themselves Vedantins, they are tending towards that rather than this thing. Yeah. Then people like Jiddu Krishnamurti said, don't bother about the world, it is not real. You are saying that, but how are you proving it? The question that we handled at the beginning of the class, the same problem will come up. Because I am dealing with the world, it has to be real. How do you say it's unreal? You can't say it's unreal because I am dealing with it. So to unreal, I have to show it all as from a single source. When I am showing it from a single source, that's called Ishvara. Whether you use the word or not. But until that single source is pointed out with a process of the creation, a process of manifestation, the human mind will not be able to get into that Sarvatma Bhava. It will get stuck. Even with the bringing in Ishvara and the teaching, it becomes difficult for the student to say, I am everything. I am consciousness, theek hai. That I am everything. That virus and me are not different. Bologa koi? It is true. It is not different. Yeah. It is true. It is not different from me. Who says it is different from me? Then why is it causing me harm? Which me?
Even especially when you have pronoun.
Yeah. Correct. And when you say, who is causing that harm? Which is the I you are talking about? Why is it causing me harm? You are talking yourself as an individual. You are not talking of yourself as consciousness. It cannot cause consciousness any harm. Your body, it can cause a lot of damage, okay. Depending upon how strong your immunity is. Or whether you are vaccinated or not. It can cause damage, yes. But body is mithya anyway. Therefore, a mithya virus can affect a mithya body. Works well, na? Functioning world. So, if you want to take care of this mithya body, wear a mask. If you don't want to take care of it, be an anti-vaxxer. Not that anti-vaxxers don't want to take care of the body. They expect the government to take care of the body if they fall ill, free of cost. Why? Because that's government responsibility. And what is your responsibility towards your body? At least wear a mask. No, why should I? It's my freedom of choice. Abhi udhar freedom of choice hota hai. But taking care is government. Idiotic, I'm telling you. This thinking, some lopsided thinking, distorted thinking, from where it has come. It's your body, yeah, it's your responsibility. At least in India, you won't find people saying government should take care of my body. Because they know, बीमार पड़ा तो डॉक्टर के पास जाओ. Pay for the doctor. They know that.
So Swamiji, at this stage, if a Purva Pakshi like a Jiddu Krishnamurti or a Sankhyan, they come and charge the Vedantins saying that, you are bringing in Shraddha and Shastra and these are all things you are just bringing in and asking people to, in a sense, believe. What would be our response to them?
He says it's something to be verified and known. If you have to live and die with the belief, then it becomes a belief, non-verifiable belief. Like if you are talking there is a heaven, non-verifiable. You have to live and die with that. And then we both have to go to the same place and he'll say, Dekha na, bola? I told you, na, it's exactly like that. Believe me, it will never be exact. So there it is a non-verifiable belief. But a pramana is not a non-verifiable belief. The pramana validates itself. That my eyes see, my eyes have to validate. If there is a problem, add something, yes. Similarly, the pramana of the Veda, the Upanishad, is self-validating. You use it and you can know it. Now, the difference between this and scientific thinking. See, scientific thinking also you have to validate. But for scientific thinking, there is experimental validation available outside. Since we are dealing with that which is not available for perception, and the following pramanas, each one has to validate it. And there is a clear-cut methodology presented. Starting with the qualification. That's why Vedanta is very, very careful. If you look at it. See, previously, if the student comes to a teacher, if a genuine student is coming, samsara agni taptaha, burnt by the fire of samsara, hassled by samsara, he is saying pahimam trahimam. It's very easy for the teacher. Why? We'll ask him a few questions. This is how I went to my teacher. He asked me a few questions, this, that, etc. All right, found out what I needed in my mind and took care of it. He said, do this, that. Fine. Then expose your pramana, you got it. Only after studying Vedanta, I understood. In fact, most of you would have understood there is something called adhikaritam only after you started studying. But then you found that some of those qualities are there in you. You're a Viveki, you're a thinker, all right. Modern education makes you a thinker. A big categorical thinker, but still okay. Makes you a thinker. Certain objectivity you have, otherwise you would never question your life. And if you are really working in an institution, etc., whether it's a hospital or a corporate, or with students, etc., 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 wherever you, if you are working, definitely samadhamma will come into the picture. If you are living in a place of Bombay, a lot of titiksha also will come. You have to put up with a lot of stuff. Anyone who comes to Bombay knows that. Titiksha will come in. Then you are living in a cooperative society which is open to anyone and everyone. You are not living in a ghetto. Though they try to create ghettos, modern ghettos, sophisticated ghettos. So acceptance of other people are there. So some amount of samadhanam does come in. थोड़ा श्रद्धा लेके आने का बस इतना ही है. Some trust. But if you have to work together with people, trust also is there. Now you have to trust each other. In teamwork, etc. So you're working as a team, whether it is in the corporate or in the medical field even more so. When the anesthetist is telling you the patient is under, you have to take his word for it. Na? Put a pin and see, patient is not responding. Correct? That trust has to be there. When the radiologist is giving you a report, you have to trust it. You're looking at it, पता नहीं लगता क्या है ये करके. I'm only seeing some nebulous stuff there. But the radiologist is saying this is okay, you take it on trust. The pathologist is saying you take it on trust. So, Shraddha is there in your mind. Trusting, the ability to trust is there. If you can't have the ability to trust, you can't do anything in the world. So, you find that therefore Vedanta first defines qualifications. So that if somebody comes and says, I have read your books, it has not made sense to me. It will not make sense. Do you have these qualities first? But science doesn't ask that. Of course, science asks that. Before I do research, minimum I must do my masters. Before I am allowed to do research for a doctorate program. And nowadays they allow MSc also by research. Last 20 years they have been allowing MSc also by research. So at least graduation they are still insisting on. I mean, you can gain knowledge differently. You can gain. Like it happened to a friend of mine. He wrote a book, Evolution of Indian Martial Arts. He took it to the university, Bombay University. Says, what can I do with this? What can you all do with this? And the professor looked at it and said, submit this. You will get a doctorate. Just submit it. In the format I'll tell you, you'll get a doctorate. Very good. What is the qualification to apply for a doctorate? Oh, master's degree. Oh, I don't have a master. Then you have to get a master's degree. To join a master's program, what should be my qualification? A graduate. I'm not a graduate. Oh. Then you have to be a graduate. Now look at it. His knowledge is enough to be a doctorate. Because this is the formal structure followed in academics. In Vedanta, we don't follow a formal structure. We don't ask you, have you graduated? Have you done this? Have you done that? Here, what is inside? What is here and what is here, that matters. It's exactly like martial arts. There was a serial called Martial Law, where Sumo Hong, that fat character, was the hero in that. He's a great martial artist. So this girl goes and asks him, Sumo, can I learn martial arts? Of course, I will teach you. Can I get a black belt? Sure. You go and buy it from J.C. Penney for $2. The local supermarket. Go and buy it for $2. You'll get a black belt. Oh, I don't want a black belt like that. I want to earn it. Oh, earn it. Martial art is not about belts. It's about here and what's here. Same way in Vedanta. What about here? But it is presented like Viveka, Vairagya, etc. Why? Because there will always be characters who will say, I can't understand anything. All this is wrong. There is an interesting debate like that between Javed Akhtar and Sadhguru. On YouTube you will find it. Though I think Sadhguru could have given better answers. I would have. I would have demolished that character. So he won't dare to question a spiritual leader anymore after that. And not only that, I have read it, I can study it. He says, no. There is a methodology of teaching, Adhyaropa, Apavada, Nyaya, you have to follow that for it to understand. If you are willing to follow, then the Shastra can be validated. But we saw in Brahma Sutras, the 4th Sutra, there is always a character who will come and say, Aham Shrutam Brahman, Natu Avagatam Brahma. I learnt about Brahman, I heard about Brahman, but I am not Brahman. Always a character who will say that. अपना क्लास में भी मिलता है एक दो चैंपियन ऐसा रहता है. Some people will come with a fresh slate every day. Every class they will come with a fresh slate. I'm joking, okay? Don't take it too hard. Okay. Yeah. So, what is the cause of that? Because again, see what is missing, benefit of doubt is given to the weaker person. So the Guru has to check up, am I teaching Adhyaropa, Apavada, Nyayena? Is my teaching traditional enough? Is it focused enough? Yeah. Why? How do you know it is correct? What is the proof for that? Because some people are getting it. Some people have become teachers. Okay. Then your teaching methodology is okay. Then you have to check up the other things. Viveka, Vairagya sab hai kya nahi? Are you listening properly or getting distracted by all the things that's happening at home? Now Vedanta classes come home, no? Naturally there will be distractions. Your maid will tell you something, your son will tell you something else, kid will be screaming something else. Hota hai. I mean, this is why it doesn't work in a Zoom setting. Teaching works for me because there is no disturbance. Okay. I have not put the intercom on silent today. I forgot that. Okay. So possible disturbance. But my mind knows how to ignore it. So not a problem. So all this we have to check up. Then whether it is the Sankhyan or anyone else, it doesn't matter. Yeah. That is why some modern teachers like Ramakrishna Mission, etc., they say this is scientific. It is not. Because scientific, if you are using it technically, it cannot be scientific. Because there is no experimental verification in that sense in the outside world. You cannot repeat it. There is no generalization. Because there is only one Atma. What generalization are you going to do? But they say it because you can validate it. Because if it is presented scientifically, people don't question it so much. Yeah. But it is, I wouldn't like to present it as scientific. I would say you can validate it. Like how any other knowledge can be validated. And that's why in tradition we'll say it. The pramana has to validate itself. Your eyes cannot be validated by your ears. Your nose cannot be validated by your eyes. I'm not getting the smell of the thing. COVID pakada kya? Delta variant? So, no, I'll use my eyes for it. Please try, put that sambar into your eyes and see what happens. Maja aayega. You can't, each has to validate itself. You can't, something else cannot be validating. So Vedanta has to validate itself. You have to go through the process and understand. Process like process, not really a process. Vedanta is not a process. Yeah. It's cognitive. No? So, but you have to, so that's how you validate the whole thing. Yeah. So that's why that Purvapaksha Siddhanta, it has to come from that. Yeah. Shraddha, basic trust is there in everything. First of all, I have to trust you before I enter a debate into you. I have to trust that you are sincere about it. No? And you are not coming to dismiss me. Someone like Javed Atkar comes, I know for sure he is coming to dismiss only. No? He considers himself an intellectual, he is not. Just because you are a script writer for films and there you are considered intellectual in that field. Why? There, if an actor or an actress is a graduate, they are considered intellectual. In society, unless you are a doctorate, you are not considered intellectuals. In Vedanta, you are considered an intellectual if you are a thinker. If you know how to think. It doesn't matter about your qualification. Viveka Vairagya hai kya? Haan, then you are a thinker, all right. Your education doesn't matter. Because you have thinking skills. And if you have thinking skills, you can learn anything and everything. So, the whole approach is different here. And therefore it validates. Generations it has been validated. Remember, it has stood the test of time. From the rishis onwards, we don't know how long back it was. Some evidence suggests it could be even older than what I have been talking about. I have been saying Ramayana is 6,000 years old, etc. Some new evidence that has come suggests it could be something like 14,000 years old. We don't know for sure. How many generations? How many generations? Yeah. Even if it is 6,000 years old. Okay, Ramayana was 5,000 BC, so 7,000 years old. Even if it is that much, how many generations have gone that is validated itself? Because every generation has had teachers. Every teacher creates some to take on for the next generation. Yeah. That is called Rishi Ranam, the Ranam that you owe to the Rishis. The debt we owe to the rishis, to leave it for the next generation. So, that's where the whole thing comes. So when you approach it this way, Vedanta will work. Okay? Alright, we didn't go into a verse in this class, today's class, but that's okay. Why? Because it's important that some class happens like this and you get that understanding of it. A more holistic approach to the thing. I'm glad for the questions that were raised. 2 questions that were raised, Yeah. Because that makes, it's always, that is why in the Gita, Krishna says that. Pariprashnena sevaya. Let your seva be in the form of lot of questions also. In fact, Swami Chinmayanji, when we were very young, college students, Swami Chinmayanji would say, don't come to me if you don't have a question to ask. You come to meet me, ask. What are you coming and gaping at me? I am not someone in the zoo. I am not an exhibit in the zoo. He would say that. Of course, then when we wanted to go and meet him, we'll always manufacture some questions. But that apart, the idea is pariprashnena sevaya, that questions will bring out the clarity of things. Like so many things I said today, some things I was planning to do, because when I looked at the confusions last time, I saw, okay, I have to say that. So think over everything that I have said. The next section is actually from 148. Tattvamasi is being analyzed. Okay. It's technically analyzed. It goes to quite a good section. Okay.
Swamiji,
Yeah.
just an observation, we have done this same thing 7 years ago on 8th January. I've got it written down.
Oh,
This
okay. So it's 7 years ago, same day we did the text.
Yeah, 2015 was this, the meaning of Dawat.
Yeah, okay, we started Tattvamasi there.
Then, yeah.
Perfect, see? Yeah. Yeah, because this is the second round I'm doing, and that's why second round I'm taking a little bit deeper. You want more deeper, you'll have to join a full-time course in an ashram. I'll do that also. I can teach it at multiple levels. Okay, yeah. So there is where it goes. So that Tattvamasi analysis, and after that, Tattvamasi is very often looked upon as a statement that is made by the teacher. Okay. Yeah, no problem, Falguni. So it is very often looked up as a statement made by the teacher. Upadesha Vakya. So when the student hears Tattvamasi, he shouldn't nod his head and say, Tattvamasi. He should be saying, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. So very often, it's not strictly true, but very often, Aham Brahmasmi is looked upon as the Anubhava Vakya. As a Vakya of the student who has gained that insight and said, yes, that is true, I am Brahman. So both he looks at it. How both can happen. What is the way of unfolding Tattvamasi and what is the way of receiving that Vakya? What happens to your mind? So that you know for sure, yes, that clarity is coming in. Sometimes because our minds are not fully prepared, mainly because it's caught up in categorical thinking, etc., it may take a few hearings before you are clear. That's why there is a repetitiveness in that. Abhyasa is an important part. And some other things also it goes into. So that part we will see next class. Okay? Good place to stop. Om Tat Sat.